crowd had long departed. One of the Russians in particular had devoted much of the past quarter of a century to entangling his adversaries in a web of deceit. His American adversaries thought that at long last they had the better of him. In Vienna, one side seemed to have won, the other to have lost. But that only made sense if you thought this was the end. It was not. That evening, Vice President Joe Biden appeared on The Tonight Show on American TV. The spy swap was the talk of the town. "Do we have any spies that hot?" Jay Leno asked Biden, referring inevitably to the red-headed woman sent back to Moscow. "Let me be clear. It wasn't my idea to send her back," Biden said to laughter. That was true. He was one of those who had opposed the plan to arrest the Russians and engineer a swap, but had been overruled after a heated debate in the White House Situation Room. His comments fit in with a deliberate strategy from Washington to play down the significance of what had just taken place in Vienna, to treat it as an inconsequential event. And for the world watching, it all seemed like some kind of bizarre retro throwback, a hangover from the past, a last hurrah of people who could not quite let go of the Cold War. That was a mistake. Introduction. This is a book about ghosts. The ghosts of spies past have haunted relations between Russia and the West, even as the Cold War ended. The Cold War was fought through espionage and defined by it in the public mind. But when that conflict suddenly ended, the spying did not stop. Repeated cycles of treachery and the hunt for those responsible were an obsession for a small band of spies and spy-catchers on both sides. Neither could let go. And this obsession mattered, since the spy wars have continued to shape relations between the two sides over the decades, playing their role in the rise of Vladimir Putin and his drive for revenge. Ghost Stories was also the code name of the decade-long FBI investigation into Russians living under deep cover as sleepers in America. It was a fitting title, since these were people who had been resurrected from the dead in graveyards as part of Russia's illegals program. The story of these spies and those who pursued them is told here for the first time in detail, but set against the broader story of espionage between Russia and the West. A confession. I was one of those reporting on the events surrounding the Vienna swap who thought it was all a bit peculiar. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and this book sets out to explain why those events were not just the last echoes of the past, but also foreshadowed a darker future. The scene at the Vienna airport offered a snapshot of a normally hidden Russian intelligence program, and the blinding flash of publicity illuminated both the tail end of a program running from deep in the Cold War and the beginnings of a new Russian strategy that would replace it. One veteran of the CIA shakes his head in awe as he ponders how his old adversary has the mindset to send people to live as sleepers in another country for decades, patiently burrowing into the heart of their target, waiting for years to act. This was evidence of the Russians' persistence and patience in targeting its adversary, qualities that have not always been appreciated. Meanwhile, on the Western side, the focus on Russia from the end of the Cold War onward has been hazy and erratic. As a result, the illegals arrested in 2010 were portrayed as something of an oddity, and certainly not dangerous. They successfully infiltrated neighborhoods, cocktail parties, and the PTA, one of their lawyers said, mocking the charges his client faced. This was a narrative deliberately reinforced at the time by the U.S. administration, which was in the middle of an effort to reset relations with Russia. Seeing Russian spies, either as figures of fun or as all-powerful, is a mistake. The reality was that the illegals were involved in building networks and putting down roots that could have resulted in long-term damage. A previous generation of Russian illegals in the 1930s and 1940s had played a key role in helping steal American atomic secrets and eating away at the heart of British intelligence from the inside. There was real risk from their work, and their mission reveals much about how Moscow sees, and sometimes misunderstands, the West. But there were also people. There are complex personal stories at the heart of this tale.